Hello, Life Groups. Welcome back. We're so glad you're gathering today as we're wrapping up our series covering the life of Samson. Now, over the last couple of weeks, we've seen Samson be impulsive and self-gratifying. We've seen him be determined and almost hell-bent on revenge and hurting those who had hurt him. And last week, we talked about Samson's blindness, but not just his physical blindness, but also his spiritual blindness as well. Now, Samson's story ultimately reflects the consequences of disobedience and the dangers of compromising our values. Samson ignored God's call on his life and did what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it and eventually lost everything because of it. But fortunately, that's not where the story ends. We're in Judges chapter 16 again, and towards the end of this chapter, Samson's hair begins to grow back, which, as you know, is really the source of his strength. And despite Samson's physical captivity, the regrowth of his hair signifies the beginning of his spiritual renewal, or what we might consider a turning point for Samson. And even though Samson is at rock bottom, God, through his grace, is still willing to begin a work of renewal and hope. So the Philistines are throwing this party in Judges 16, thanking their God for their victory over Samson. They're all drunk and they want to be entertained, so they call for Samson, and a servant leads Samson between two pillars, and Samson asks to be propped up on these pillars. And here we see Samson do something that he didn't do very often. He prayed. He asked the Lord to remember him and to give him strength just once more. And then Samson braced himself against the pillars, and if you know the story, you've heard the story growing up, he pushed against the two pillars with all of his might, collapsing the structure, killing himself along with thousands of other Philistines, including their leaders. Now, Samson's story is full of irony, and as impressive as he was physically, he turned out to be anything but a hero. All of Samson's victories and accomplishments were all personal and private. Never in the entire narrative of Samson does he operate in anyone else's interest but his own. But when all was lost, Samson turned to the Lord, and the Lord was able to use Samson even in his darkest moments to accomplish God's sovereign plan. Samson learned that God's grace is sufficient and that God specializes in using broken people. And I think that's the hope for us as well, and that God can bring victory through our brokenness when we turn back to Him. Enjoy your discussion today.